good evening, and welcome to another Destined to Be Free, giving voice to the voiceless roundtable. I'm your host, Stacey D. Shaw, president and co-founder of Destined to Be Free, which is a domestic violence awareness organization. I am super excited to be speaking with my guest tonight, and I would like to welcome all of our viewers as well. Would also like to remind our viewers that everyone's story is different from the other, and abuse is abuse. It is just that simple. No one has the right to abuse another person in any capacity, in any situation at all. So, without further delay, let's begin by introducing our guest, and then I will open up with a quick prayer and then move straight into the discussion. My first guest is Marianne Rivera Dennert, is the Fearless Living Coach and a human resource professional. As a certified life coach, her life's mission is to empower, inspire, and equip women from coast to coast to gain self-confidence as they create the life they have always desired, a life where they are free and happy, living life on their terms. In overcoming adversity, she has turned her life around, and the once high school dropout holds a master's degree in leadership and a bachelor's degree in organizational management. She's also a 4-time published best-selling author. Woohoo! Marianne's story, not yet completely written, continues to unfold. Embracing her fearless and fabulous spirit, she currently resides in the state of Florida, and she enjoys the beach, traveling, and spending time with her family. Her published books includes Book 1, WOMB Sisters Chronicle, which is Women Overcoming Men Blues, and her chapter title, Relationship Junkie. Convinced that things would get better, convinced that he would change, convinced that I could change him, I stayed. Book 2, Win, Volume 2, Women Inspiring Nations. Her chapter title, The ABCs Were Not For Me. High school was an awful experience for me. I had no role models, no mentors, no one to turn to. I found solace with those I identified with, the outcasts. Book 3, Surviving Her. Chapter title, A Letter to My Dad. You didn't even notice during your random and limited visits that something was wrong. You should have known, Dad, you were not there. I had no one to run to. I had no one to protect me. You weren't present enough to shield me from the evils of the world. And Book 4, A Praying Wife in Waiting. Chapter title, The Kids Are Grown and Gone. Now what? When my last relationship ended, I made the decision that going forward, I would not settle nor would I sacrifice my desires or needs for anyone. My attitude was it was my way or the highway. Let's welcome Marianne Rivera Denner to the round table.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Stacey.
Hi, Marianne. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. You're very welcome. And my second guest is Rosa James. Rosa James received her bachelor's degrees in legal studies and master's in social work from the University of Central Florida. She started her career working in child welfare, but transitioned in 2012 to work with domestic violence survivors. Since then, she has held several local and statewide positions to support survivors of domestic violence. Currently, she is the Domestic Violence Training Coordinator for the Fulton County District Attorney Office and working towards her doctoral degree in social work. Her topic of study is Black women who are currently or have experienced intimate partner violence. Let's welcome Rosa James. Rosa, welcome.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me, ladies. And before we start, let's just open in a quick word of prayer and then we will go right into the discussion. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for tonight, dear God. I want to thank you for these wonderful ladies who are on the show to just share their story and for us to have a discussion. Dear Lord, I ask that you continue to guide and bless each and every one of us. And Father God, let our voices be used for your purpose. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. So, ladies, of course, the first thing that I always do is I always ask the guests to introduce themselves personally, to share with the viewers who you are in your own words, and also begin and share your story. So let's see who I'm going to start with first. Rosa, I'm going to start with you first. So if you could share with the viewers who you are, and go straight into and share your story.
So, of course, I'm Rosa James, and I'm a domestic violence advocate, and currently in a PhD program to study more about intimate partner violence for Black women. So I do want to tell my story. I won't give you the extended version, but I'll give you some information to know like my story and my abuse story. So first, I always tell people that I was a child that was raised without boundaries. Basically, my parents and every adult violated my boundaries. Like, you didn't get to have that. So I went into adulthood with no boundaries. So of course I ended up with an abuser. We dated for 5 years. He's not a bum. He has a MBA from the University of Michigan. He emotionally abused me, financially abused me, and sexually exploited me. So he did not physically assault me because he was afraid to go to jail. He had a fear of going to jail. So he would never put his hands on me, but he often told me fantasies of him slapping me. Like, I had this fantasy about slapping you the other day. And I'm like, why are you telling me this? When I talk about sexual exploitation, I'm talking about, it's very hard to talk about that part of my story because that part of my story is very embarrassing. But one thing he used to do is to encourage me to date older men so that I can sleep with them and get money and bring it back to the relationship. And he would sign me up for sites like sugardaddy.com and stuff like that, so that I would do that. He would often try to encourage me to go be a stripper. And he also would, he raped me twice that I remember, because both times I was unconscious when he did it. So he did a lot of sexual things to make me feel shame. As far as the financial exploitation, like he out of 5 years between buying things and giving him money, it had to add up to about $40,000, $50K in 5 years. He would break up with me if I didn't buy him something. He would be very aggressive about sending me items that he wanted. And I felt at that point in the relationship, I felt like if I didn't get it for him, he was going to leave me. So I had to do it. And the emotional abuse is just making you feel like you're less than, like you're not enough, like telling you things that about yourself that would make you feel like you're less of a person. So you in turn feel like you're not enough. So you're going to keep doing for him to get him to stay. I am in a sorority, and this man was in a fraternity. So like I said, we were both college educated people, and these things were going on in our relationship. And although I've heard worse horror stories, this is my story. That was my trauma. And we often say emotional abuse, that sticks with you for years. You know, physical abuse is horrific, but the cuts heal, the wounds heal. The emotional abuse, it takes years to correct what someone has told you that you are or what they want you to be. So that's kind of my story. What I focus a lot on in my story with people is my childhood. When you're raised without boundaries, when any adult can do anything they want to you, that really sets that child up for failure in adulthood, because you don't know how to define your own boundaries, so you just let anyone do anything to you. So that's the part that I focus on the most, to like, teaching youth healthy boundaries, set your boundaries, talk about healthy relationships. And I really focus in on that. So that's pretty much my story. Like I said, I didn't experience physical abuse, but everything else is horrific enough for me to want to help others and really want survivors to move forward. And that's it.
Well, Rosa, I know because we have known each other for a few years, so I know I know a little bit about your story, but to actually hear it tonight, first of all, let me say how I'm sorry about what you went through, but I also want to commend you on what you are doing to help others as well. So, yeah. Ooh, so, Marianne.
Yes.
Let's go to you. Each time that I do these roundtable, it's really to share with the viewers what we go through, how we survive to help others. But when you sit down and you hear the stories, you have to sometimes it's like, okay, people actually went through these things. People actually live this stuff. And, now that we have somewhat overcome, and as Rosa said, emotional abuse takes time. It takes years, which I'm actually going to touch on a little bit more. But yes, Rosa, I'll just say yes, because we understand. We understand. Marianne, let's turn to you for you to share with our viewers who you are and share a little bit about your story.
So my name is Marianne Rivera-Donette. I am known as the Fearless Living Coach, and I have been a life coach for about 6 years now. I recently did rebranding and changed over to the Fearless Living Coach, primarily because I felt that it just connected and resonated more with me and my true passion, which is to inspire, empower, and equip women from coast to coast to unlearn previous, negative behaviors and words that have been spoken into their lives and that they have taken as labels upon their lives and have created a life, basically a false life, because of those labels. My first experience with abuse was in my early teenage years. And again, it wasn't physical abuse. It was more emotional and mental, so a form of control. And I remember telling the individual, like, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my father. Um, and, people looked at it as, that's not abuse because you're not being hit and things like that. High school friends that I had, not high school, middle school friends that I had. Um, and I wasn't really raised or, talked to about healthy boundaries like Rosa, spoke about healthy boundaries, healthy relationships and things like that. Um, but the mental abuse and the emotional abuse actually progressed into physical abuse. Um, and recently, I have actually been able to be more vocal and open about sexual abuse that occurred when I was a child, which is the story that I write about in the book that's coming out on the 1st, Surviving Her. Not on the 1st, on the 13th. So I, also have experienced various types of abuse. Society just, sometimes doesn't recognize mental, emotional, financial, spiritual, social abuse. And my mission is, to just empower women to get out of their own way, to unlearn behaviors that they've learned. A lot of times women are stuck. They lose identity, their self identity, and they take on the identity of those labels that have been spoken to in their lives. Um, so that's what my passion, currently is, and what I'm working on, things like that. I do have the goal and aspiration to have a nonprofit. So I've actually started to speak to some individuals about that, and it kind of it'll be like a holistic type of nonprofit. So it'll deal with abuses and things like that, coaching. I'm also a human resources professional. So just teaching individuals, basic life skills to enter the workforce. In my 10 plus years of being an HR professional, individuals are not equipped, properly, how to write a resume, how to show up for interviews, how to answer, how to dress for the interviews. So those are things that I want to cover. Um, and that's just, basically who I am.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for sharing a little bit about your story. And again, also to you, you know, abuse is abuse, and people don't realize that abuse is abuse, and each person's abuse is different. There, as Rosa said, there are some that are, you can't even imagine it. But if somebody experienced, say, as you said, emotional abuse, those things, you don't see emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see verbal abuse. You don't see psychological abuse. And those are the ones that really take time and take several years to actually heal. So as I speak about that, if either one of you can jump in regarding healing, um, share with the viewers in terms of healing, or if somebody is going through emotional abuse, what are some of the things that you personally would recommend to them um, to start the process of healing? Any one of you can start. Whoever.
So I guess I think for me, I would say is actually to start to recognize what some of the signs are. So for example, when it comes to like mental abuse, is, why are you wearing that? Who's your friend? Why are you hanging with that person? Why don't you stay home with me? Let's spend time together. So those are forms of, isolation and controlling you, when you're being told what you can and cannot wear, where you can and cannot go, where you have to check in every single moment. If you're, 5 minutes late, God forbid, why are you late? Um, and being afraid, to do things because of how the individual is going to react. There's even, spiritual, abuse, don't go to church. You can stay home with me, little things like that. I manage the money better. Why don't you just put all your paycheck into my account? I'm the man of the house. Let me pay for the bills, but yet it's your money. So I think just starting to recognize, some of the signs, seek help. There's a lot of, free resources, um, but also having the courage to open up and speak to someone. It could be a counselor, it could be a therapist, it could be anonymous. Just reaching out, seeking someone that you trust and that you can confide in to, start the process of healing.
I know for me, the first thing I had to do was realize that this person is never going to change, and this person is who he is, and it has nothing to do with me. It's who he is. And the second part of my healing, I'm in therapy. I'm currently in therapy I advocate therapy for Black women and Black men all the time. You have a blind side. They can really walk you through healing. And I really recommend therapy and journaling, and also journaling. And you have to create your true support system. I know you've been isolated for probably 10 years, but you have to reconnect. You'll be surprised who you reconnect with, who will be your support system, and create that circle, that circle of that can support you through it, because it takes time to heal. Healing isn't easy; it's ongoing, and it sometimes I say it's never ending. It's a constant step every day to choose to heal. So definitely therapy, definitely a circle of support. Have your team, and also realizing that this person is who they are, and how they treated you had nothing to do with you. That was I had to get through that part first before I could even go into some real healing.
That's very true. That is so true. Now, Rosa, I know that you're working on your doctorate, and your doctorate it's about black women and the statistics in terms of Black women who are currently and have experienced intimate partner violence. Now, I did a little research, and I'm going to ask you just to share a little bit about that, because I know you also wrote an article on Facebook, and I read it, and it was so powerful. But I was doing a little research on that topic, and according to the CDC, they published this in the summer of 2017, and it says that it takes a close look at the homicides of women. More than 55% of the deaths were related to partner violence, and the vast majority of those were carried out by a male partner. What's notable is that this is across all racial ethnic groups, but intimate partner violence can affect anyone. It really just shows that this is a public health problem. However, the report also found that Black women are slain in general at a significantly higher rate than women of other races. And it says here, Black women are killed at a rate of 4.4 per 100,000 people versus 1 and 2 per 100,000 for the other races. So if you can just tap into what I just shared with the statistics, as well as a little bit about what you wrote about, and just to share with the viewers on that topic about Black women being the high affected by this more than the other races.
So Black women are affected very much so, higher than any other race in America. And there are multiple reasons why this is a problem. And the statements I'm about to make is the statements of Rosa James, PhD student. So it's not Stacy, it's Rosa James. The battered women's movement is inherently racist. And it does not take into consideration what Black women experience when we experience oppression and other isms as far as the intersectionality of being a Black woman. They don't consider that. They don't prepare their staff. No one is prepared for this. We lack leadership of Black women in domestic violence centers and national programs. And this all comes into play when it comes to Black women dying. One example is Black women, Black people inherently do not trust law enforcement. But I can't gain services unless I have a police report. So how am I supposed to access services when I refuse to make a police report? Because I don't want to get my man arrested, because if he goes to jail, he might get killed. He may not even make it to jail. The way things are looking, he may not even make it to jail. He may get killed before he gets there. I can't have him arrested, but I can't access these services that I need because you're saying I don't have a police report. and I can't access this funding because I don't have a police report. So you're forcing me to get temporary protection orders. You're forcing me to get these things. And because you're not culturally, you don't have cultural humility and you don't understand my community. So Black women, yes, are dying for a multitude of reasons. But I always say the battered women's movement is inherently racist and it's not making any changes. So eventually I'll be able to, take care of that so that we can get the services we need.
Well, and even though I read the statistics, I know for a fact that Black women Black men actually are abused as well, but Black women actually are the ones that are at the top of abuse especially from an intimate relationship situation. Marian, I don't know if you want to talk to actually chime in on that a little bit, as your take as well. If you see that as well as being a coach, if you see that statistics, or you're seeing that with the people that you work with.
It's interesting because I actually worked at a domestic violence shelter several years ago as a residential family counselor. And, I saw firsthand, like what Rosa, was speaking about, that minority, leadership is not there. The CEO, the director of the program and things like that. And a lot of women, are afraid, to press charges or to leave, with the threats sometimes, and things like that. So it's definitely, an issue that needs to be, light shine on to be able to afford the resources, for victims so they can get the help that they need.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, and that is why we as advocates, we actually have to really speak up, because I'm finding, as I am embracing this new walk of being an advocate for domestic violence, is that yes, there may be several organizations that provide domestic violence, but the average person is not listening. If you think about it, the average person is not listening. So I'm hoping, by sharing, by us doing what we are called to do, and we can make an impact some way, or a dent, I should say, in this epidemic. But another thing that I found out also is that people on average think that one type of violence is worse than the other. And I see both of you shaking your heads. It's like, oh, this particular this is bad, but this is not so bad. And I've seen where people just, especially from the islands, you say, suck it up. That's nothing. Just suck it up. And you don't realize what you're doing to the individual. So my question to you, ladies, and I will start off, let's see, whichever one of you want to start off, it doesn't matter. My question to you, ladies, is if you can share with the viewers in your own perspective, when they say one type of abuse is worse than the other, share with them or give them your views on that statement, because that is one of the statements that I hear constantly.
I hear that all the time too. And I think that, I think Rosa mentioned it earlier on. Physical abuse, yes, obviously it is bad, but the scars heal. You can heal, you can cover up the scars, foundation, depending on, you can wear long sleeves, turtlenecks and so forth. But the emotional abuse goes deep into the roots of who you are as an individual. It affects your self-esteem. It affects who you are as a woman, and it triggers on, it trickles on. If you don't take care of that, the cycle just keeps repeating itself, and you're just piling on, baggage after baggage, issue after issue, insecurity on top of insecurity. And I think that needs to change. The views on abuse needs to change. Mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, social abuse. Abuse is abuse, and they all should receive the same amount of importance and importance, when a woman comes forward that they're experiencing, being controlled mentally or financially. It needs to have the same, response as if a woman was getting beat up and receiving broken bones or a black eye.
Very true. That is so true. Rosa, do you have anything to chime in on that aspect? Oh, your mic, you're muted.
I was just going to say there's no spectrum of abuse where it has everything lined up. There's no spectrum. Abuse, if you are in an abusive relationship, it's abuse. I treat every survivor the same, regardless of her severity of her abuse. I don't measure it. It's what it is.
Exactly. Now, Rosa, I know you mentioned one type of abuse that a lot of people don't speak about, and that's financial abuse. Because I realize that that's a type of abuse that a lot of people have never heard of. Like, for instance, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, but I do these 5-minute lives from our Facebook page, that I was doing some research and I found out about another type of abuse that's called reproductive abuse. I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
I see, Marianne. I didn't know about that. And I'll share a little bit about that. But financial abuse, can you, if you could share with the viewers, what is financial abuse? Because a lot of people have never heard of financial abuse. I know you shared what happened in your situation, but from a advocate and a counselor and somebody who works with survivors, what is financial abuse? You're muted. There you go.
Unmuted. So financial abuse is where the abuser uses your finances to have power and control over you. They can ruin your credit by getting you evicted multiple times, or have you take out credit cards, have 5 or 6 credit cards and add his name on it, and completely destroy your credit. They can have you deposit your direct deposit into their account, and where they have all the money and you're getting $25 a week, but they have all the money in their account. It's a real tricky way of keeping you in isolation, because if you don't have any money, you can't really get in your car and go anywhere. And if he ruins your credit, you can't really leave the relationship, because where are you going to go to get another home or another apartment? They use it to really keep you in the relationship and keep you close to them. So financial abuse is a real thing, and it comes in all different forms.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, that's one of the types of abuse that a lot of people don't know. Marian, I do not know if you wanted to touch on that as that question as well. Again, you're free to chime in anytime you want.
Yes, definitely. That is something that I actually dealt with in my first marriage. Without going into too many details about that, I was instructed to have my paycheck go into the joint account, which was, we open up an account together. You're married, so it's like, okay, our money goes together. And then shortly after, I actually went into the bank to withdraw money. I think I was going to withdraw money or pay for something, and the card wasn't working. And I come to find out that he actually had taken my name out of the account. But yet my paycheck had been going into the account. So again, it was definitely a way of isolating me, and it was definitely a way of controlling me and keeping me dependent on him. I had no idea. I was young when I got married my first time. I had no idea, what bills were due when, how much the bills were actually were, because he handled all the finances. So I definitely, know firsthand what that's about. And breaking that cycle was a journey getting out of that cycle.
I can imagine. I can imagine. That was one of the, as I say, I call it layers or branches of abuse that I didn't really experience. But I did experience, as I said earlier, one that I didn't even know there was a title for it. That's called reproductive abuse. As I said, I just found out about it like 4 weeks ago when I was doing some research. I'm like, oh, I guess that's another type of layer that of abuse that I experienced. Because just to share a little bit with the viewers, reproductive abuse is, there are several ways for several things that can fall under reproductive abuse. But in my situation was where I was forced to give up my baby. And let me put this disclaimer out there. I don't believe in abortion, but when you're in an abusive situation, there are things that you're going to do to please your partner. So that was one of the things that I had to do. And I will tell you, I still am choked up a little bit about it when I speak about that. But another thing that is one of my pet peeves as I'm learning, and both you ladies can chime in, is when somebody says to a survivor or a victim, why did you stay? Yes, I know. Why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? I will let whoever wants to chime in, because I see both of you. Yes, it's a pet peeve of mine as well. So I will let whoever wants to chime in.
Go ahead. Rosa, you can go first. Go ahead.
So understand that domestic violence can lead to domestic violence homicide, and there are survivors who are not safe. The lethality goes through the roof when the survivor exits the relationship. That is the time when they're most likely to get killed. So if someone is pointing their gun at you every day for a year and say they'll kill you if you walk out that door, then of course you're going to have an inherent fear of not wanting to leave the relationship. That's one aspect, is fear for their lives. Two, sometimes survivors love the abuser. I'm gonna just put that out there. I know a lot of y'all don't like to hear that, but sometimes survivors are still in love with their abuser, and all they want is the abuse to stop. I just want him to get help to get the abuse to stop. I just want him to get help. And then third, in my situation, I stayed because I felt like no one else would want me. I literally, truly, everything in my being felt like this is it. He's it. No one else is going to want to be in a relationship with me, because it took me so long to get to find somebody to actually want me, that this is it. And he used that. So those are just three reasons. I'm gonna let Marianne talk about more, but understand fear is a real thing.
And along with fear, there's also the fear of being judged. Like Stacy just said, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? And again, it just goes like full circle. You don't have any money. You may have children. Who's going to take care of the children? Where are the children going to go? Where are you going to sleep? What are people going to think about you? And then again, the mental and emotional abuse that that you've endured over the years, or over the months, it takes a toll on you. So it's kind of like the old saying: it's better to stay with the devil that you know than the devil that you don't know. you know your current situation. You may have learned ways, to hide or to keep him happy, to keep him, to stay at a safe distance. So sometimes, all of that wrapped up, is easier to just stay than to finally have the courage to leave. And I've spoken to several, women that have always said, well, I've paid for this house, I've paid for this, I'm not leaving my stuff behind. It's material things. You can start over. You only have one life. Once that life is gone, it's gone. A house can be bought again. Your finances can be rebuilt. So it's kind of like, just getting to that point that you've had enough, and you leave. And that is also, something that, I have had to talk to different people about. Because it's kind of like, well, why did you stay if it was so bad? It couldn't have been that bad. But just, to get back on what Rosa said, you know, you you hope for, that things will change. He brings you flowers, he apologizes, and things are good for, 24, 48, 72 hours at most, and then it just starts all over again. And you just keep building that resistance, and that's all you kind of know.
That's true. So I would like to just put this out there. Please, if you can stop asking survivors and victims, why did they stay?
Yes.
Or why don't you leave? Because everybody's situation is different. And fear, as Rosa said, fear is the number one factor. Mm-hmm. Fear is the number one factor, and I think the second one is financial, and then children. And I understand that there are people that I've heard that they said well you walk away for the children. Sometimes it's not as easy as that, because abuse affects you mentally. They control your mind, and I will tell you, my husband lives overseas now. And he was controlling my mind, and I'm in the United States. So he wasn't with me for a few years, and he was still controlling my mind. Once they get to your head, to your brain, to your mental, they control you. So fear is the main reason why a lot of victims or survivors don't leave. So you ladies, if you could share with the viewers what you think they could start doing, because as advocates, as organizations, as I said earlier, we are sharing the information, we're speaking, we're trying to get more information out, but people are still not listening. And people still look down on survivors and victims. It is a fact. They look down on survivors and victims. If you could share with the viewers and anybody else that's going to actually watch this after, what are some of the things you think that they could start doing to assist us as advocates in eradicating domestic violence? Any of you could start, just your insight as to some of the things that you think that people could start doing.
I think one is to just recognize the different types of abuse. Do research. There's more than enough literature out there. So just research. Educate yourself. For employers, know the law, because there are domestic violence laws that protect victims of domestic violence, that if they are in fear, if they have to miss work, they legally cannot get fired. For it. That might vary state to state. I can't remember whether it's a federal law or state laws, but I know that, that is a law. Have resources, talk about resources, have, meetings, donate, or volunteer, actually volunteer at shelters to just expose yourself and educate yourself.
Thanks, Marian. Thanks so much for sharing those tips. I appreciate it. Rosa, you're muted. There, you're good now.
Okay. So first is to believe survivors. When they tell you their story, believe what they're telling you. Second is to educate yourself. If there's a training in the area about domestic violence, go to it. Just go to the community training, and it won't last long. It'll probably be 90 minutes, and just see what domestic violence really is. And lastly, engage men. I really have this push on engaging men and boys. Engage men in the conversation, because we need more men at the forefront of this movement to really eradicate this type of violence or make it socially unacceptable.
Awesome. So we only have 15 minutes, ladies, and time is going by. So I'm going to ask you the last question that I want to ask you. If you could speak to a survivor or somebody who is a victim right now, if you could share 2 tips or 2 insight, just something to encourage them right now, what would it be? Let me start with Rosa.
First thing is that you are a strong person. You are strong and you are very powerful. Second is he's never going to change. They're never going to change. I know you think that they may change, but they're never going to change. And those are the 2 pieces of information I can give survivors if I've sat with them face to face. And I always do a referral. Even though I have my rant about the system, I will always refer. Here's the number that you can call. So if you are in danger. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosa. Marianne.
I will say the very first thing is to know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are not a mistake. And number 2 is that this is not your fault. There's nothing that you could have done or said. The behavior, it's his actions. So do not blame yourself and seek help. Those would be the things that I would recommend and say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you. I so appreciate you. So let's talk about each of you and what you have going on, your books, your courses, your trainings, your school, everything. Let's start telling people what you are up to. So, Marianne, I'm going to start with you. If you could share about all those 4 books, your coaching, what you're doing. Go right ahead. Where people can connect with you, social media, everything. Go right ahead. Okay. It's all yours.
So yes, I have 4 books. 2 are actually coming out in September. The very first book that I co-author, and these are all anthologies. So basically anthologies is that myself and a group of women behind a visionary wrote a book, and we each read a chapter. The first one is called Women Overcoming Men Blues, Sister Chronicles Volume 1. And that book is specifically about unhealthy and toxic relationships. We each wrote a chapter. We talk about the relationship. We talk about the red flags that we ignored, and some tips, and then how we ended up having the courage to leave that relationship. The second book is called Women Inspiring Nations, Volume 2. And my chapter in that book, the first book, Womb Sisters, the chapter is called Relationship Junkie. The second book, Women Inspiring Nations, the chapter is called The ABCs Were Not For Me. So basically it's my story, which was a struggle, dropping out of high school, and how I turned that into a success. And the success is that in December of 2019, I graduated with my master's degree. But there's a whole lot of stuff in between. The third book is A Praying Wife in Waiting. And that one, actually, no, that's book number 4. Book number 3 is Surviving Her, Fighting Hope Beyond the Pain. And the chapter in that book is called A Letter to My Dad. And it's basically writing my dad a letter in regards to sexual abuse that I experienced as a child. And then the last book is A Praying Wife in Waiting, which is a book for single women married women, whether you've been married for, a few months, a few weeks, a couple of years, or whether you've been married for 30 plus years. And that book is coming out September 13th. And to buy the books, you can find me on my website, which is mariannerivera.net.com. On Facebook, The Fearless Living Coach. You can find my page. On Instagram is M. Dannert. And I do speaking engagements, life coaching, and all the information is on my website.
Wow, wow, wow. Congratulations on all the books and everything that you are doing. You are a powerhouse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rose, you're so welcome. Rosa.
So I don't have a long resume, but I have one. So currently, like I said in the introduction, I am getting my PhD in social work, policy, and leadership. So I write all the time. I write. That's what I do. I recently had, maybe I want to say March, I believe, I had a think piece published about domestic violence in the COVID-19. It probably was April. So that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. I'm actually working on a social media campaign called #WeAreNotInvisible. And that is highlighting Black women and girls and Black trans women. I want to highlight us because we tend to get lost in the narrative. In every narrative, even in Black Lives Matter, we get lost. And I want to highlight us. So that's a social media campaign that I'm currently working on. It's gonna come forward soon, and that is it. I do speaking engagements and things like that. I haven't done them in a while. So if you wanted to request me for some reason, I do a lot of healthy relationships, healthy boundaries, teen dating, violence, social norms, gender norms type trainings. So
Awesome. Ladies, I tell you, powerhouses. Rosa, even though you may not have the books yet, but I know you. I know.
They're coming.
Exactly. They're coming. So powerhouses. Ladies, I mean, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. If you could leave one word, what is that one word tonight? Rosa?
Inspire.
Inspire. Thank you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show, Rosa. I so appreciate you. And please let me know when the social media campaign is out. Please let me know, as well as to let me know about the article that you posted.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Marianne, one word.
I have to use two. Fearless.
Okay,
and
go. That's fine. Fearless and fabulous. Exactly. So thank you so much, ladies. You have been phenomenal. I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing your stories. And we're all in this together to eradicate abuse. So again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I would like to again thank my viewers and thank my guests for joining me tonight. Please remember to follow me, follow the organization Destined to Be Free on Facebook. Our Facebook link is, our hashtag is Destined to Be Free, as well as on Instagram and Twitter. You may also visit our website at destinedtobefree.com. Again, thank you to Rosa and Marianne and to all the viewers and to everyone who will catch the replay. I appreciate, I love each and every one of you. I am your host, Stacey D. Shaw, saying good night. And please remember to join us on September 10th, same place, same time for another roundtable. Remember, you're victorious. Keep on rising. Have a good night and be blessed.